Thank you, Sophia. Yes, I am Bret Kinsella from voicebot.ai. I'm excited to be back at Voice Talks. This is now my third appearance here at Voice Talks, and I'm always happy when I get invited back. You can learn more about voicebot.ai at Bret Kinsella, all these things, and follow what we're doing. But the most important thing is we're here to talk about brands and voice. And VoiceBot was founded in 2016, just about 4 years ago. And we have literally done hundreds of stories on brands and voice. This is one of our most covered areas. So it's been a real focus for us over the years. If you want to know a little bit about VoiceBot, just go to voicebot.ai. We're sort of the central resource of voice and AI if you're not familiar with us. And we'd like to talk about data. So research.voicebot.ai. We're going to talk about data in just a moment. You can find a lot of this stuff that's already been done, because if you think about this, a year ago, we did an analysis of 200 top brands across 20 industries. So we looked at these industries, we looked at what the top brands are. We wanted to assess what the likelihood or the propensity was for them to have a voice presence of any kind. And so you can see the details here in the pink. You can see what was out in 2019. And then in the darker color there, you can see in 2020 how that's grown. And so you see from Amazon Alexa, Google Assistant, both rose over the year. And then there's these other categories that we looked at as well in terms of this both, is whether they had both Amazon Alexa and Google presence. So that has gone up as well. And then there's also this idea, almost 40% have at least one. So they've got a presence on those platforms. And I think a lot of brands really, when they consider voice, the first place they go is think about Amazon Alexa, Google Assistant, maybe Samsung Bixby, but they're thinking that's where the consumers are and that's where they want to have a presence. And so they're starting there. But then all the way over on the right, we have this other question around custom assistants. Now, this is one of the most popular topics right now that I talk to about with people every week in Voice Insider and in the social channels. They want to know what people are doing, building their own assistants so that on their mobile apps they can have them, or in their products they can have them. And that rose from 9.5% to 11%. So those are still there, but we've seen a rise in financial services and media companies that are building their own assistants, and I expect that trend to continue. Now, one of the things that we hear from time to time from brands, at least when I talk to them, is how are people going to market with this? How are they deciding to add voice to their portfolio? What are the different methods people are thinking about? And there are a variety of strategies. And about a year and a half ago, I was able to distill this, along with the VoiceBot team, into 4 different strategies. Think of these as sort of the archetypes of how brands are adopting voice. So we have in the lower left, we have the players, in the upper left, we have the explorers, and then we have the integrators and the miners. Now, I wanted to put these in some meaningful relationship to each other. And so the first thing we looked at, if you look at the y-axis, we were looking at their presence, their channel presence. So is it narrow, like one channel, or is it broad, multiple channels? They want to be a lot of places where consumers are. And then we looked left to right, whether the capability set, the features were shallow, or all the way to the right if they were deep. And so you can see, as we array these different types of strategies, they have different levels of commitment and dedication to the space. Now, let's talk a little bit more about some of these characteristics. You can read a lot of these things on here, but let's just distill it really quickly. The players, they tend to have a single voice app. They're mostly going to be on Alexa or Google. They haven't built out their own infrastructure. Some of them are doing that, but for the most part, it's really shallow, right? And they have a presence, and that's great. And in fact, almost all brands start there. Almost all of them have. A few have gone other places, and then they move to those other quadrants. So that's a very logical starting place, because they test and learn, and they figure out what they're going to do, and then they expand. And then you have these people who move up to the Explorer level. And this tends to also be very Alexa and Google Assistant focused. Those are the people in that both category we saw on a couple slides ago. So those explorers, they actually believe that this is a great way to reach their customers, but they haven't invested to build their own capability set yet, usually. So they're using other people's channels to actually reach customers, very much the way they might think about social media or something like that. And the lower right, we have the miners. And these are the organizations, and they tend to be more rare, but they said, hey, we want a lot of control over this. We think there's a lot of value. They tend to embed it in their product or in their mobile app, and they use it as a feature to add to the quality of their product or service. And then we have the integrators. And they tend to do what the miners do. They have that type of presence, but they're also present on the consumer voice apps like Alexa, Google Assistant, Samsung Bixby, because they see voice as a capability that they need to have everywhere consumers are. And a lot of them are really trying to take a more sophisticated view that they want a consistent experience, whether they own the property or they're working on someone else's platform. And I thought I would just give you a quick set of examples here about brands. So you've got in the lower left, you've got places like Red Bull and even Snapchat or Diageo, where they don't have a significant amount of presence. They tend to be in one place, and they don't have a significant amount of features, but they're in the game. They have that presence. They're part of that 40% of the top brands out there. And then the upper left, you have people who said, "Hey, this makes sense, but I can't just be on Google Assistant, not on Alexa. I think I want to be on both. Maybe I want to be on Bixby. Maybe I want to have some other shallow capability on another platform." But you've got NPR up there. You've got Discovery with their many digital properties, Fox. So those are good examples. And the lower right, as we said, these are the more rare ones. They're actually investing heavily in their own voice capabilities. They have NLP teams. They're really into machine learning, but they think of this as a core feature that's going to differentiate them. And then in the upper right, you've got the people who are basically all in. BBC, I think, is really well known for people that they've launched their own, but they're also on Google, they're on Amazon Alexa. They want to be everywhere, their own apps, other people's properties. They want to have that consistent experience, but on their own properties, they want to have much deeper experience, much greater capabilities than they can get through the consumer apps. You see Mercedes there, Deutsche Telekom, they built their own smart speaker, as well as voice remote. So there's a lot of different ways that people are going to market. So what I thought I would do is just conclude with some key trends to watch for brands and voice over the next year. And the first thing I'll say, voice UX is going to be added as a feature to more products and services. We're already seeing that today. You're going to see a lot more over the next year. Voice navigation is going to show up more as an expected or standard feature in mobile apps. A few mobile apps are rolling it out. Consumers are going to like it. They're going to demand it elsewhere. So expect to see a lot more of that. The other thing we see around voice UX for customer service, I expect that to be added to a lot of these, whether they're Alexa skills or Google Actions or their own mobile app. They're there for engagement. They're there to add features and services to consumers. It just makes sense. It's really easy for them to add this and to provide a better overall holistic customer experience, to be able to answer that question the customer has at their time and need. Very much the way social media evolved and went from engagement to customer support being one of the core functions. I expect that to happen in voice. And then the last thing is the consumer voice platforms are going to be evaluated as a marketing channel. So this is good news in one way. They've sort of stepped up. It's not just this innovation budget anymore. It's going to be, hey, this is an important part of our marketing, go-to-market, our omni-channel marketing going forward. The downside is going to be they're going to have to stand up. The voice programs are going to have to be compared and evaluated alongside the mobile app, the social strategy, all their other digital properties in order to get attention, in order to get resources. And so those are the 4 key trends that I'm thinking about for the next year. I'm Bret Kinsella at voicebot.ai. Follow me on the Twitter at Bret Kinsella. Oh, and check out the podcast. We've got a ton of great stuff on custom assistants over the last 12 weeks. But that's enough for me today. I think I should send it back to you, Sophia.